We are still waiting for a few more attendees. I hope they'll be joining us soon. So please bear with us. And this weather is beautiful outside. So while the time we wait, we can just look, if you have a window in your room, look through our windows and enjoy the weather. And of course, I do hope to dear God you all have your electricity, because I don't. And of course, I will introduce myself also once we have some more participants joining us. In the meantime, maybe you can ask someone to get you a cup of tea. Well, I guess the ones who are there, I should at least tell them, hopefully they should be knowing me by now. My name is Sumaira Malik. I'm the administrator here at Bayview High, and I have been with them now for a good 21 years. And I hope to remain here for a while. And I hope that this webinar is going to be helpful to us as educators, and to you, of course, as parents, and of course to our students also. I'm just waiting for another 5 minutes maybe, and then inshallah we will begin. Let me check in the meantime if we have any questions. Well, thank you, Uzma Nawaz, for joining us. I think we will begin in 2 minutes, because the people here who are on time, why should we request them to wait, and inshallah we will begin soon. Nice to see you also, Uzma. And Ms. Rashida, nice to see you too. And of course, we're all praying that inshallah ta'ala schools open soon, because we are all missing our students. And I'm sure, well, I'm not so sure if they're missing us. I'm sure they're missing us as well. Thank you, Kawal Nabil. Thank you for joining us. Yes, of course, they're missing school. Definitely, Usma. You know, this digital platform is such a thing for me. I'm so mesmerized by it, actually. And our children are so good at it that it is unbelievable. Good evening, Dr. Saima Mushtaq. Very nice to have you on board. I'm checking the chat, so as to be. Yes, I know, Dr. Saima, that you're mother of Hamna Imran. Yes, of course. All right, so let's start officially, informally. So Assalamu alaikum and a very good evening to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. We are so glad that you're here with us. I would first like to introduce myself. I'm sorry, it might be repetition for some. My name is Sumaira Malik. I'm the administrator at this senior campus, and I have been with Bayview High for the last 21 years. Now I would like to talk about, as most of you know, the emotional well-being team was launched 2 years ago. This was to support the mental health of the parents, teachers, students, and for all of us. And of course, now that we have this COVID-19, I think we need it more. So for this reason, it is my pleasure to introduce the EW Parent Webinar Series. We had one earlier for the junior school, junior school, sorry about that. Then our second session is today, of course, and tomorrow is our third session for the preschool, and hopefully we'll have a few in the next academic year. And we are really excited about this project and really hope that you will be able to take away some helpful tips at the end of this webinar. I would now like to introduce our panelists. First, I would like to introduce the senior campus principal, Mrs. Anne Arufin. Mrs. Arufin has been with Bayview High for the last 23 years and has been in this educational field for over 30 years. Mrs. Arufin's main interest is to work with children who have a learning difficulty or special needs. And of course, we are very happy to have her here today on this panel. Now, the second person that I would like to introduce you, my colleague, Mr. Shams Samson. Mr. Shams Samson is the vice principal, and he joined us in 2004. So we are pretty ancient if you look at us. Mr. Shams holds a master's degree in educational leadership and management, and he also teaches mathematics and computer science. And of course, Ms. Arich Jafrani, who is the head of the EW team, is a child and adolescent psychologist and play and sand play therapist. She has been with us for the last 2 years now, and she heads the EW team, as I just mentioned. And of course, our dear Ms. Minel Gardezi. Ms. Minel Gardezi has a diploma in humanistic integrative counseling. She is a senior school student counselor, and Minel works collaboratively with teachers, administrators, doctors, and parents to provide a safe and respectful space that supports the academic and personal development of the students. Once again, I would like to thank you all for being with us today, as it is a very important topic, addressing online safety. Because of the COVID-19, a lot of people have started to go on their screens more often as compared to before. And we, as adults, we need to ensure their safety. We will be talking about how to spot signs in the youth when something inappropriate happens while they are online, and how to address these incidents in a safe and in an effective manner. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the webinar, we'll have around 10 to 15 minutes for your questions. You can use the chat box for your comments, and there is a little icon which shows the question box as well. So my first question is going to be Ms. Arich, to Ms. Arich Jafrani. Arich, what do we mean actually by online digital safety?
Thank you, Ms. Samara, and thank you to all our parents, first of all, for being here and joining us today. So digital or online safety is basically, it refers to anything when we're going online, and it's about our physical and emotional health and how we keep ourselves not just physically protected, but also emotionally. So a lot of the time when we go online, that information that we're putting out there can also be used to harm us in ways that can translate to actual physical harm. So it basically refers to different types of risks and harms, and it's about how our personal data may be used, the kind of communication we may be having online, whether it's safe or unsafe, and the kind of impact it might have on our mental health, what we're exposing ourselves to, and what impact that might have on our emotional well-being. So it's really just about being aware of what kind of personal information we're sharing and who we're sharing that information with. I think parents don't need to be told that there are a lot of, not so nice people out there who can actually pretend to become friends with our kids and gain their trust, manipulate them into revealing personal information or their pictures, and that can then be used in ways that are inappropriate or not safe and may impact them negatively in lots of different ways. So it's also about being mindful of what kind of information we're sharing with third party apps. So we go on Facebook, we go on Instagram, Snapchat, lots of different websites, and we put all kinds of information out there, information that may be used to track us actually in our physical world too. So I think it's really important to be aware about the kind of stuff we are putting online and what that information can be used in, and in what ways it can be used. So also having conversations with our children about who we're allowing to friend, or who we're allowing to follow, allowing them to follow, right? So we have so many apps to track. So we've not only just got Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, we've also got TikTok, where our youth can put videos and pictures up, and it can be shared with lots of people. So it's also being mindful of who our children are following. Are they safe people? So just being mindful also of the activity that we're exposing ourselves to. So we're being bombarded continuously online with videos, pictures, news. So just being mindful of the kind of accounts that our children and ourselves are following, and how much of that information are we taking. So I think it just kind of encompasses everything, basically. And also just being aware that whatever we put online stays online forever. It just goes on the digital footprint. So the one rule of thumb that a lot of people say is, if would be okay with that being revealed to the entire world, that's the only thing you should put online. You shouldn't put it online otherwise. So just being very mindful of the kind of information we're putting online, and also being aware of cyberbullying, harassment, device addiction, video game addiction. So it just kind of encompasses so many different things.
Thank you so much. And I have to agree with you that yes, there is a lot out there. Sir Shams, my next question is for you. What are some of the challenges faced by the youth when they go online?
Thank you very much, Sumera, and good evening to everyone here. First of all, I think the biggest challenge for us when we came online was getting the kids to get up at 9 o'clock and come to our classes. I think that was the biggest challenge we have to face. I think after the pandemic, everybody's sleep patterns had changed, and especially our youth and children, they sleep late anyway. And in the beginning, we had to struggle a lot, and this was the biggest challenge. Second challenge that I find was, the text language that they were using. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the chat language that we're using, they could no longer use that. Coming on the digital platform, they had to be more formal. And within a, I think, span of night, they had to change over. So something that they were writing to the teachers reverted back, no, you cannot use this language. So I think usually when they are physically with us, we keep grooming them, and it's a slow process. It's a process of transition. But suddenly, they had to be careful of that. And of course, many parents were very supportive in that. We spoke to the parents, and parents spoke to the children. So that I think for youth, I think that was a challenge. Suddenly going from those acronyms, writing the complete words, I think that was one challenge that the children had to face. Then another challenge that I find that the youth could be having is, like Arija has already mentioned, going online, it is like engraving everything that you write. The data may be pictorial, it may be written, or any GIF that you put there. Children need to realize, some of the children don't realize that anything that they put online, it stays there forever. It was very, very important for children to realize that, and we are still in the process of making them realize. So in this, I think parents need to play a huge role where they keep speaking to the children. It's very important for our children to have this realization that whatever they put, it's kind of being recorded, everything that they put online. And of course, in our context, I think another huge challenge was the electricity and the internet service providers. Suddenly in a class, the electricity would go and either the internet would drop and the child was not in class. So I think children themselves, they found this as a big challenge. So these are the few things, I think all of us and children especially, they kept on facing this challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Shams. My next question is to Mrs. N. Arifin. Mrs. Arifin, how do you think is the digital platform going? What do you think about that? You would like to know your thoughts. We would like to know your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Samira.
No problem.
And thank you for all those who've joined us here. How is the digital program going? I think it's going very well. The students have been amazing at adapting to this new way of learning overnight. Of course, there have been some teething problems like Mr. Shams mentioned, but overall it's been very smooth. The parents have been absolutely brilliant in supporting their children, in supporting the school. And our teachers, of course, have gone above and beyond. However, and so therefore, your question is, how do you think it's going? I think that it's been a very, very successful launch. However, a digital learning program on this scale is still in its infancy, and not only at Bayview High School, but the world over. So everywhere, what schools have done is they've shifted a conventional classroom to an online classroom in record time, and it's been phenomenal, this change. And this entire adaptability on a multi-layered case, it's fantastic the way it has happened. But like I said, it's at this scale, on this huge scale, a digital learning program is still in its infancy, and we have much to learn. We've had a huge learning curve the last couple of months, and I anticipate to learn a lot more going forward. So, yeah, thank you.
Actually, Mrs. Arifin, I would also like to ask you that how do you think it has helped students and parents to get the maximum benefit out of this?
The thing is that while we're working on the technological side, and not only on the technological side, but the pedagogical side as well. So when in the whole of April and May, the schools, all schools, particularly Bayview High School, our digital learning team, our IT team, our admin support team, and all our teachers were busy researching and learning how to make this shift. And it was not only about technology, like I said, it was also about the pedagogy of learning. How do we make a class, a lesson as effective as we do in a conventional classroom? So while all this research was going on and still goes on, and it goes on the world over, I think that what we need to keep in mind is that, and we will see that while we've achieved much, there's going to be a lot of learning, and there's going to be a lot of tweaking and changing and so on, and as we go forward. But there are a few things that are not going to change in the days ahead. And these things are very, very basic. Sometimes what we do is we overlook the most basic things because we're so focused on the complicated. So I'd say, in answer to your question about how to get the most benefit out of an online classroom, I'd say that the three things or the three habits that can make you a highly effective online learner are a good night's sleep, physical readiness, a structure and routine and self-discipline to stick to that structure. And surprisingly enough, none of this is new. And you know, our grandparents have told us this about sleep. Experts around the world, sleep experts, health experts, mental health experts have been telling us about sleep. So touching on the first point, I'd say that for any kind of effective and beneficial intellectual activity to take place, you need a mind and body that is rested and fresh. And sleep is essential for brain functioning. And amongst the many systemic health benefits that sleep has, let's just focus on the three that are relevant to our context. And that is, a good night's sleep increases your cognitive ability. It helps your knowledge retention, and it helps us with long and short-term memory. So when you talk about it, it seems something so simple and something that we've been told again and again, but something that we always choose to neglect and, you know, and not to follow. Now, we all know that while sleep deprivation has been around for a long time amongst the young, it's nothing new. However, we feel that ever since schools closed and children have been at home, I think this has become more of a problem. And we also know that the age group of children that we have at the senior campus is ranging from 11 to 16 years. And children between 11 and 16 years need a minimum of 9 to 9.5 hours of sleep at a stretch during the night. What's happening is, or shall I say what's not happening is, that children are getting that much sleep. And what we've seen is that for 9.5 hours of sleep, and to catch an online class that begins at 9, I would suggest that students get up at 8 in the morning. And for that to happen, they need to be in bed and fast asleep by 11 o'clock the night before. Now, that's not happening in many homes. And what we see is that children are getting up just in time for class at 9 or a little later. And all they do is they just reach out for their device and they log into class. And as you can imagine, neither their mind nor their body is ready to learn in any way. So they don't turn on their videos then. We have a little SOP, amongst other things, that we expect our students to turn on the video when they're answering a question. And that is simply to keep them engaged, to keep them alert, to make sure that they don't, you know, stroll over to the kitchen to get a snack, or that they don't tune off to check their Instagram. They need to be focused in the class. But obviously they can't turn on their video because they've not even rolled out of bed yet. So I think that it's very important for us to keep reinforcing with young people who are digitally connected 24/7 on video to the outside world, how they need to be dressed, how they need to be sitting when you're on a video call with anybody outside your home. Because apart from the social and the professional etiquette aspect that surrounds dress code, this is also about safeguarding and protecting our children. Like Reach said earlier, there's a lot of bad people out there. So they need to just get used to the fact that when they're on video, they need to be dressed properly, they should be sitting properly. They need to be sitting at a workstation which has, where they can have proper posture, they have proper posture support. So when they're sitting online for, you know, in front of their laptop or whatever, for 4 to 5 hours at a stretch, with those short breaks that we give them, they're doing so without any harm or injury to their body, to their neck, to their eyes, to their back. So it's very, very important. And I think that it's crucial for parents to have important conversations with their children around these topics. What happens actually is that parents feel sort of reassured that because young people are so much more tech savvy than their parents are or than we are today, that parents they're kind of left on their own, to their own devices, that they know what they're doing. And frankly, yes, they do know what they're doing. As far as technology is concerned, they do know what they're doing. But as far as their social and emotional development is concerned, they're still very young, and they still need our scaffolding and our guidance. So therefore, it's very important to be quite hands-on there. And that brings us to our third point, which is to have a structure and routine and have that self-discipline to stick to it. And that is something, again, which is very important in life in general. But when, during these days, during the pandemic, when we're homebound, now school has started, it started online, we're kind of confined to the same space for the entire day. So we want to make sure that we're not sitting in front of the screen the entire day. So once school is over, from 9 to 1:45 we have school. Once school is over, it's important to disconnect to all your devices, and do something else for 2 to 3 hours. And then maybe for a couple of hours in the evening, you can have a little timetable where you do your homework and your assignments and so on. And of course, it's very important to connect with your friends. So you can have 2 batches of 45 minutes here and there to connect with your friends. Also, that's very important, and we appreciate that. But we, on our end, we're trying very hard to pace the work that the children get. So if the homework that they're getting, normally the submission day is a week later. So if they kind of manage their time, they can do it in a more orderly manner. Having said that, I'd like to tell the parents they were also very open to parents' feedback, to students' feedback, and we're noting down all the feedback that we're getting so that we can tweak and modify and make changes as we go along. So there we are, the 3 habits of highly effective online learners: good sleep, good physical posture, and physical readiness, and routine. Thank you.
Well, Miss Anne, I don't know about the children, but I will definitely start following your advice, although I'm doing it partly already. My next question is to Harish. Harish, what is BVHS doing to ensure the protection of students in every way?
So that's a very good question, and I'm so glad that you've asked us that. So in the past, BVHS has dealt with matters of safety in a discreet manner, and by ensuring that everything that comes our way, if there are concerns of safety, they're kept confidential, but also addressed immediately and effectively, where all the stakeholders in a certain scenario are satisfied with the outcome and the decision of that incident or of that concern that's brought up to us. In the past, we've also had sessions on online safety with our previous counselors for our parents, and our management has an open door policy. All of you here, Minel as the counselor, Mrs. Arfin as the head of the school, Sir Shams, you, Ms. Samera. So we always encourage our parents, if there are any matters of safety that they have concerns with, they can always come and speak to you about it, and also to any of our teachers or to any other staff member that parents trust or students trust. We also, this year, we've taken a very active role in ensuring that our students stay safe. And what we have done over the last year is we have developed a safeguarding policy, which is basically a policy that lays out what constitutes harm to students and what are some risks to students, be they psychological, emotional, or physical. and we lay out all of those. We also lay out what are some of the procedures that will be followed by our senior management as well as our head office or our counselor should any concerns of safety are brought up. So we've always done that in an informal capacity before previously, but with the emotional well-being team now, we've taken a very active role in formally penning all of those things down. So we have policies for what should the management do if there are concerns between peers, or if there are concerns with any other kind of relationship in regards to safety. So we were supposed to roll this policy out over the last couple of months, but because of COVID we were unable to. But as soon as things settle down a little bit and all our staff becomes a little bit more settled into the digital learning platform, we will be rolling this policy out and training all of our staff members to ensure that each and every one person that comes into contact with our children, with our students, knows how to spot signs of harm if there are any signs of harm to spot, and what to do in the case where we are suspicious of any harm occurring to the child. And so what we believe is that any student that walks through the doors of PVHS, we and are enrolled under our care, we take their safety really, really seriously. It is our moral responsibility, and it is the moral responsibility of any person that comes in contact with a child to ensure that those children remain safe. We also encourage all our parents and all our students to come and speak to us if they have any concerns. And we have over the last few years, and specifically in the last 2 years with the emotional well-being team and the counselors, to actually train our staff and our senior management to listen to the concerns of our parents and our students in a non-judgmental, empathetic way and wholeheartedly. So those are some of the things that we are doing to ensure that our students stay safe.
Thank you, Arish. Absolutely. That is the most important thing for all of us. Arish, one more question from you, and then I will. What are some things that parents or caregivers can do that the children are definitely and surely protected online?
So there are lots and lots of things to do to ensure that children are protected online, and that caregivers can do to make sure that children are protected online. And I think Sir Shams has lots and lots of suggestions on that. What I can speak to is if there is a lapse in safety, what caregivers can do. And maybe we can come back to that after Sir Shams talks a little bit about what parents and caregivers can do to ensure the safety of our students online or their children.
Yes, thank you very much, Reach. Yes, of course, this is, I think, first of all, children and parents need to understand, not to disclose their passwords to anyone. You see, among children, especially, their friends, yeah, what's your password? What's my password? This is my password. It's very, very important for our parents to speak to the children, and children need to know that they cannot pass around passwords. When they get online, especially, they have, usually we always have those two-step verification. So as parents, as adults, I think all of us, whatever chats we get on, whatever platform we get on digital, it's very important to have our verification done. Verification is usually they ask you for your phone number and they ask you for email. In case somebody tries to get in, you can, they can get back to you whether is it really you who's trying to change the password, or those two steps verification is usually in most of the digital platforms we have. Checking privacy settings, of course, younger children cannot do it on their own. So parents definitely need to check on the privacy settings that a lot of platforms have, and a lot of the digital apps that the children are using. You should not download any app whatsoever without knowing about it. Because a lot of apps are there which are actually stealing your data as well. And especially, I think social media, we have to be very, very careful. One more thing, blocking. I think the children should learn to block someone, who makes them feel uncomfortable. That's very, very important. And after that, they should have the opportunities to speak to someone maybe their parents, maybe their elder brothers, they should have the opportunity to speak to someone. So, I mean, in all this, I think all of us have been emphasizing that there has to be an open channel of communication within the children, children to parents, parents to children. Then, of course, children always come and speak to us as well, to their teachers. They should have some channel where they can communicate. And last, of course, but not least, we as adults or as parents need to be alert to the signs of distress. Pattern changes, how they are speaking, how they are feeling, and maybe they are doing something differently what they haven't been doing. So we need to be mindful and alert. Thank you. You can take it from there. Anything else? Because I think there's a whole lot of advice and suggestions available to us.
And as for parents, we always encourage to stay on top of all the applications that their children are using, because there are so many out there that and that are using very sneaky ways of stealing their users' data. So just being very aware of what these applications are and doing some research on how you can ensure that your child stays safe online.
Thank you, Arij. Minil, I have two questions for you. But first, I will ask you one question at a time. What is the psychological impact of cyber harassment, bullying, and abuse? And how can a caregiver know that something is going on? That's my first question.
Well, I think that so Shams has already answered some of how caregivers can know if something is going on. I mean, you can tell with your child with the pattern changes, whether they're sleeping too little, too much, whether they're staying locked up too much, whether they're eating okay. These are just some of the signs that they exhibit at home that the caregivers can keep a track of. So I think that's a little bit, I think it's important that we have open communication with our children, because a lot of times their children, they will make mistakes. That goes without saying. Nobody has ever got through their younger years without making a few. It's just that if we feel like we have access to our parents, that our parents are there to listen to us, it makes it more likely that the child will come forward, because they shouldn't be so afraid of telling their parents that they made a mistake, that they have to be able to at least approach them and say, you know what, I made a mistake, but now I need help fixing it. And a lot of times, especially with online stuff, I think children get deeper and deeper and deeper into that hole, because there's nobody around to tell them that, okay, this is how you need to fix it. This is when you need to step away. This is when other people need to come in. Um, what the psychological impact of cyber harassment is. So you see, with bullying, bullying has physical bullying as well. If there's a boy who gets bullied in school, let's say someone hits him, someone pushes him, he'll get over it. Maybe he'll get hurt, but then that wound will heal. It's the emotional aspect of bullying that is really corrosive, because it eats up at a child's self-esteem, it eats up at a child's any sense of security, and that stays with them for pretty much the rest of their life. And so even though physically a lot of people may not have access to us, they can still hurt us emotionally. So that emotional aspect of bullying will always stay there. With online harassment, what makes it really really scary actually is that there's no bound. So let's say you've made a mistake in school. Let's keep it really simple. Let's say you've tripped and fallen. Only the 5 people who were there saw you, right? Some other people may have heard about it. You don't know what they're thinking, what they know, whatever. So there's some element of maybe it happened, maybe it didn't happen, maybe they know, maybe they don't know. When something goes online, and because it's available forever, let's say I'm talking to somebody and I made a mistake, that can be screenshotted and shared across the world. That's just too big an audience for your mistakes, right? And it stays there forever. And then people can share and reshare. And then not only that, but you can see everybody's comments on it. And you can see people, how they're laughing, what they're saying about you, any mistake you might have made. And that is that just amplifies that bullying to no end. And I haven't even got, these are the simpler things. I haven't even got to where they're doctored images and doctored conversations and everything and there's no way where you can go and say that didn't happen. I didn't say that, or that's not my picture with the nude figure, that's not me. It's been doctored. Where do you go? Who do you say that to? Who's listening? Nobody, because nobody takes a second to say, is this true or not? What is my behavior? It's so much easier for me to go online and say, laugh at somebody and say, oh, they're a fool or they're this, without realizing the compounding of that effect that is taking place. Which is why I think this series is also so necessary at this point, that parents come in and have more awareness of how these effects are taking place.
Thank you, Harish. Yes, you're absolutely right. Minel, sorry. Minel, my next question for you. The pandemic has resulted in increased use of screens.
Yeah.
So what are some ways that we can get children to use screens in a positive way?
I'm going to echo Miss Anne here, because I think it was so powerful what she said when she said that I think we focus so much on the complicated and we forget about the simple. A structure, for sure, structure. I cannot stress this enough. But what that means for online work is a lot simpler than you might think. Um, having let's say time limits on screen use, saying, okay, this is the time you're allowed, the rest of the time you're not allowed the screen. Having not allowing them to have their gadgets inside their rooms. Things like that, to kind of bring it more into the open, so that if the child is sitting in a study and doing schoolwork, or in a living room where people are walking around and they can do what they're doing, but there are two things that happen. One, of course the children are going to feel very frustrated. They will rebel like you wouldn't believe, because they don't want you to have that much access. I get that. However, as a parent, safeguarding them is our first responsibility. And we cannot let their reaction dictate to us what we do as parents and what boundaries we set. You have to make your peace with being hated. Why it's important is that, one, it gives them structure, and that structure allows them to have a connection with the real world. Because it is so easy, especially for Generation Z, where these kids that we're talking about right now, who have been born into the digital age and the virtual age, and for them to, when they have time limits and structures and things like that, it helps them to maintain a connection to the real world, because that's where life is really happening. Everything virtual is staged. It's so easy to get lost in that and not know who you are and not know how to orient yourself. So when you have structure like that, you're able to kind of go out there, do what you need to do, and then come back to real life. And having that connection, it can be crucial to their well-being. Knowing when real life starts and ends, and when the virtual life starts and ends. And that's the kind of emotional and social development that Ms. Anne was also referring to, that we as parents and educators still have to instill in them, even though we may not know exactly how a certain app works and how to fix the privacy settings. There are some basic things that we can do, that we do have access to, and we have access to immediately. The other thing that we have is that if your child is being bullied, and a lot of people are, it's not a matter of if you are, it's more a matter of how much you are. It reduces that access that those people have to you as well. So if you are holed up in your room day and night with your device, over and over and over again, this person or these people have access to you. At least when you put in that structure, that limits their impact on you a little bit, because you still have real life to come back to. right? And the screen can be used in so many positive ways. I mean, we can go online, we can learn a new skill, we can learn to cook, learn music, learn art. You know, we can do all of these things. I mean, I've recently started putting on these watercolor. I've never done art, but now in the pandemic, now I'm finding it so soothing to just put on this video of a watercolor painting and just keep doing it. People have learned languages, people are doing recipes, dance, yoga, everything is online. It can be such a force for good. But that force for good, rule of thumb, force for good happens generally in family spaces and not in dark rooms, right? Which is why it is so necessary to bring it out of their rooms and bring it into the family space.
Absolutely.
Miss Samara, you've been on mute.
Yes, I am sorry about that. Okay, what I was saying was that due to COVID-19, there is such a great deal of uncertainty. I mean, one day I'm told the numbers have gone down, one day I'm told the numbers have gone up. And it's not just me who's feeling it, it's all of you. And of course, our children are feeling it too. We should never, whether our child is 5 years old or 30 years old. So I'm going to now have a few questions. And Minel, again, I'm sorry, but the first one is for you. My question is, Minel, how may going online very frequently be linked with the feelings of uncertainty?
You know, so I think I'm going to build on what I just said, and are we coming close to the end? So I'm going to wrap this up quickly. The very obvious one is the news, right? Where they kind of, because nobody really knows anything. So because they want to keep the sound bites going, some pieces are very exaggerated, some things are contradictory. So that's the very obvious one that we're all, what we're not aware of is when we go online too frequently, we're disconnecting from the real world, right? We're disconnecting, we're using that to kind of shut ourselves off, not think about it, because when they're doing social media, when they're watching TV, whatever they're doing, they're using it as a means to disconnect. And when you kind of come back into the real world and you think, wow, this is so scary, and they shut off again. However, if you are more a part of the real world, then you can kind of use that more productively. It gives you a sense of control, saying, okay, let's say I'm really stressed out about because I don't know what my college is going to look like. I don't know what any of that is going to look like. But in the meantime, I learned a language. In the meantime, I learned to cook. In the meantime, I learned to dance. In the meantime, I learned all of these things, which means that sense of control comes back. You get grounded into reality. That control comes back. You understand there are certain things I can do, I do have control over. My well-being is one of them. When you go online too frequently, you disconnect, you live in other people's lives, then you lose any sense of control at all, which exacerbates that uncertainty. Because no matter how, I mean, sure, I'm really stressed out about the pandemic in my school and everything, and while I'm sitting at home, I don't have $1 million mansion, and I don't look like that, and I'm not a size 0, and all of those things that you cannot control, that's fear where you don't have control just becomes larger and larger and larger. So which is why the lesser you go online, the more you realize that your environment you can control actually.
Thank you, Minel. Ms. N, I have a question for you. How do you think that these feelings, which Minel has just mentioned, are manifested in the youth's day-to-day lives?
How are the feelings of uncertainty?
Yes.
Yeah? Well, like Manel said so rightly, that this is a period of immense uncertainty for kids and for adults alike. They basically wake up every day to get through another day of potentially bad news coming at them from multiple directions. And like what Manel said was that when you're on social media or when you're connected, you're not being informed, you're being inundated with images, with breaking news, with all kinds of things that only builds on your fear and your confusion and your uncertainty. And they're getting the cues from the adults in their lives also, because everybody's confused. I'm confused. I'm uncertain about what tomorrow may bring. But for these children, because living in this environment of collective uncertainty, starting from something as little as, should I touch this doorknob or not? Did I wash my hands well enough or not? You wake up in the morning and you feel, am I going to have electricity and Wi-Fi to attend school today? I couldn't do my assignment because of weak Wi-Fi. Am I going to get into trouble now? Am I going to lose marks on this? So these are the very basic ones. And then there are the scarier ones in their lives, where a family member is ill with COVID and your uncertainty is are they going to make it or not? So it's a very scary time in all kinds of ways. I mean, we get calls or emails from parents or older siblings also of children, even grade 6 and 7, telling us that, we have COVID in the family. One family member is hospitalized. My little sister was not able to do her work today. She's very worried. What's going to happen? So it's about panic and anxiety about little things, or misplaced anxiety, right? Maybe that's their coping instinct, that you're trying to block out the more scary, and you're scared about what's going to happen if I haven't completed my work. So what we do is we just, obviously we make sure that we reassure them not to worry about it, just focus on getting better, that we understand the stress and trauma that they're going through. It's okay if they've not finished their work. The teachers will help them, they'll support them to complete. So, these things happen. There are other children who cope with the stress that is a byproduct of the uncertainty by just misbehaving in class. I mean, that's what they would do in a conventional class also. Yeah, they misbehave, they're unkind to their peers, and then we've also seen that there are some students who are normally top of the class, but we see the slide. They, because of the stress, they feel challenged, they feel they can't cope, and we definitely see the difference in their performance. But the thing is that teachers are very alert to this, and generally it's communicated within teams, within teachers who are teaching these children, and we try to help and support these students in coping. So yeah.
Thank you, Anne. Last two questions for the panelists, and then we're going to open our question answer session. My first question is for Arish, and the last one is for Manel. Arish, which are some ways that we can address the difficult emotions that arise out of this feeling of uncertainty?
So that's a really important question, because we've talked about how it might manifest, we've talked about what feelings are, but how do caregivers actually address those difficult feelings? Because the entire situation is going to bring up a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. Some kids might feel sad, some kids might feel hopeless, and I think one of the things that we've missed out is a lot of grieving. A lot of kids are grieving lots and lots of losses, right? We have kids who might not be able to start their college this year. We have kids for those graduating, not for our senior school kids specifically, but older kids who are graduating from A levels and who were looking forward to going to university, for example. Or we've got kids as our senior school kids who are probably looking forward to their farewell party or their graduation parties and all of that. So they're grieving all of those losses, because even though things might be happening virtually, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as looking forward to being together with your friends and celebrating your achievements. So I think one of the things is to give our children the space to be able to to be able to voice their feelings and their difficult emotions, and acknowledging that this is really, really difficult and it's not great, and we're all in this together. And instead of dismissing that everything's going to be fine, we're going to be out of this pandemic soon, and everything's going to be back to normal, instead of doing that, just helping them stay with those difficult feelings and really leaning into those feelings, and saying, we understand, I understand that you're going through all of this, and we will grieve, and we will feel anxious, and we will feel worried, but at the end of the day, we will get through this. So just also sticking to hope that we are going to get through all of this, and when things are better, when things are settled, then we will celebrate in the ways that you have always dreamed of, for example. Other things that you can also do is really controlling, focusing on things that children can control, which Manel already kind of mentioned, where there are things that children are not going to be able to control, and that's going to give them a lot of stress and anxiety and worry. So instead of focusing on those, focusing on things that you can control your reactions. You may not be able to control the circumstances or the situations or change those situations, but you can control the way you are reacting to them, or you can control the way, for example, with how much frequency you're going online. So those are some things that you can do. Also, making a list of actionable and achievable goals. So again, grieving some goals that you're not going to be able to achieve this year, and actually coming up with new ones that you are going to be able to achieve this year, and focusing on them and breaking them down into different steps, smaller steps, so that you can gradually and slowly build up towards achieving those goals. And some of the things, Miss Anne has already mentioned, structure, predictability, while they also help kids be effective and better learners, it can also help with feeling better, feeling emotionally in control, and be able to help them regulate their emotions a little bit better too. So, and yeah, just normalizing and acknowledging that these are difficult feelings, and it's okay to feel all of them. And even as parents, if you are feeling those difficult feelings, just acknowledging that everyone is going through them, and it's absolutely normal, because we're having to go through things that none of us thought that we would be able to go through. I have a feeling that Miss Sumaira's electricity has gone off. So let me see if I can find the question that we were supposed to ask Manel. Yeah, so Manel, I think Ms. Sumaira was going to ask you this last question. If there is any advice you'd like to give to the students, especially the ones that are graduating from the school, and maybe our parents can then, let our students know that message from you.
Reej, if I had one message for them, it would just be, if there's one thing I could get out there, it would be, don't numb out. The human spirit is remarkably resilient. It is strong. It is growth oriented. It is ambitious. It will find a way out. The biggest issue that we have now with not just the Generation Z, but even older people, is that they numb out. They use the resources that they have, whether it's the internet, whether it's their phone, whether it's they use it to numb out from the real world. And when they do that, that spirit, the human spirit that is alive in them, numbs out, dies out. It doesn't know how to find its way out, right? So just whenever you find yourself disconnecting, numbing, take a minute, step back, come back to the real world. And no matter what situation you find yourself in, the spirit will find its way.
Manal, thank you. That was really beautiful and really, really um, beautifully put. We are going to take a few questions. More synchronous calculus.
We
So
already have a question.
yeah, we've got a few questions. I think we have.
Yeah, so far I see the one from Ms. Razala, more synchronous classes and less recorded with cameras on. Uh,
Like to ask.
Definitely, Ghazala. Yeah. We have addressed this. You see, in the beginning when we were preparing a timetable, we had this in mind that we don't want our children exposed to too much of screen. That's why we had in the first month of June, if you remember, we had 3 days synchronous. That was live classes with cameras on, and 2 days we had asynchronous. Then when we got into July, we got 4 days of synchronous, and believe me in that many of the teachers are again and again asking that even the asynchronous they want to change into synchronous classes. And for recorded lesson, Vidala, you need to understand even when the teachers are doing online classes, you see when they're having the synchronous classes, there's some parts they need to explain, and if they were in a physical class they would do it on the board, right? And so the recorded sessions usually we have a good resource from YouTube where there are lovely videos that teachers can put up. Or some of our teachers, what they do, they come to school, they record the session, they do it on the board for some of the subjects, and that recording that goes on the synchronous. So I hope that does answer your question. And yes, definitely I understand kids don't take recording seriously, but it is for us to keep talking to them again and again. So I hope that does answer my question.
If I can add here that in the new academic term, and when we will probably continue with this, there will be more synchronous classes, right, Mr. Shams? That we have planned more synchronous classes.
Yes. And we will be taking the Saturday off. We need that 5 days a week, and I think all of us need that Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Ms. Samara, you're on mute again.
My mic, yes, got it. Dear parents, I would just like to summarize of what all the panelists have said, and I'm going to be very quick. Miss Anne spoke about structure. That means that was number 3. Sorry, number 1. Miss Anne said good night sleep. A good breakfast is very important. And of course, the dress code, how we sit, how we conduct ourselves online is very, very important. And a structure. Parents, your children might say, oh, mom, I don't like you, or dad, I don't like you. That's fine. I hear it till today. But they are looking for that structure from us. It is our responsibility to do that. As Sir Shams said, not to disclose our passwords. I have seen that many children share their passwords with their friends. Please, my dear students, don't do that. And of course, your language has to be more formal. Dear Miss So-and-so, and thank you and regards and all of that. Your capitals, commas, full stops. Miss Anne is very particular about punctuation. And of course, what Arish has said, that we have to be careful. We have to be cautious. And one thing that we really need to do, and frankly speaking, even I need to do that, we have to stop being judgmental. When a child says he or she has made a mistake, you know what? I have made so many and I still do. We have to give that confidence to our child that no matter what you do, we are here for us. We are here for them, sorry. That is what I meant. So please, that is very, very important. And I cannot emphasize enough on this. The parent-child relationship is very, very crucial. It's very, very important. Manel, of course, Manel had said that your child might say he hates you or she doesn't like you, but parents have to enforce structure. Our parents, okay, we were different. I mean, forget us, what sort of children we were. But our parents, I mean, I still remember that my mother, what she has told me, I still, at that time, I hated my mom for that. But you know what? I appreciate it. And so does my daughter now. And of course, the other very important point that Minel had made was that internet can be good, used for a good purpose or for a bad purpose. If you have too much of milk, it will give you a tummy ache, right? So anything that we use has to be in moderation. And the most important thing for all of us on this panel, people at home, parents at home, caregivers at home, we have to safeguard our children. That is the most important thing. Thank you so much for your patience, for your time. A big thank you to all the panelists. A big thank you to all the parents. And now if there are any questions, please you can put it, you can ask. Okay, there are questions which, okay, let me just maybe miss. Okay, I'll read the question. It is from Dr. Saima. Okay, the deadlines for assignments were very short, and at times they used to overlap. At the end of the day, the child would burn out. So, Sir Shams, maybe you or Mrs. Arifin can answer that question, and then I have another question, but later,
Yes.
please.
Shall I? Okay.
Because,
Yes,
yeah.
Generally, what we have always tried is that if an assignment is given, the submission date is always at least a week from that day. It may have happened in an instance or two where your child had to give it by that evening. I'm not sure. Is that what you're saying? If that happened, that definitely shouldn't have happened. But I am guessing that there must have been some kind of a misunderstanding there, because all teachers do make sure that the submission date is at least 4 days, if not a week away.
And mostly, I think we all need to understand some of the homework that was going on. It was mostly associated with Google Forms. Now, Google Form is something which appears within a class. You can fill it there and then, and submit it online. For example, the departments that we had and the teachers we speak to, we specifically told the teachers, it shouldn't be too overbearing for the children. But yes, this is one task or one aspect in the next term we will be working on. That, for example, if the first 2 days, 3 subject homework goes, this is one aspect definitely we have to work on.
okay. I have another question from a parent. How to ensure, and this is a real difficult question, how to ensure kids are attentively taking classes when you have more than one child and they start chatting with their friends at times or start playing games?
Realize their responsibility, because we are totally on a different new world order, and most control is shifted, responsibility is shifted towards them as well.
I think I would just say that even though everything is shifted online, maybe just remember that they are human, you know? I mean, if you're in a classroom, you will be speaking to the friends who are sitting next to you, and then you'll be stepping out and changing classes. And, it kind of releases a little bit of tension also. I think it's a very tricky balance. So I understand that kids can get carried away, of course. And if there's a parent who's around and the kid is talking more than they're sitting, then maybe kind of just nudge them and say, please concentrate right now. However, just remember that they're just, humans, and maybe if they let out a little bit of this energy talking to their friends, and it might help them concentrate more. depending on obviously the level that is happening. Concentrate for a little while, have a bit of a release, then concentrate, then have a release. That's how to make it work, to make it work more effectively. What I noticed very often in school when the parents would come in, every time a child has a problem, every time the grades slip, the first thing the parents do is take away the friends. You can't go out to football, you can't play with your friends, you can't do this, you can't do that. What that does is that takes away a lot of the healthy coping mechanisms that they do have actually, and then you increase the pressure that they're under. The more you increase the pressure, the worse the concentration is going to be. So it's your child. There is nothing that anybody can say to you which is a prescription. Understand, is this a time of just release and healthy coping, maybe laughing, or is this distracting? You have to kind of draw that line somewhere.
Thank you, Manil. I think parents, thank you very much for your time. And there are some parents who've just sent me a message, and I'll just read it before we end. Very, very informative. I'm already doing, but got so many tips to improve more. Thank you to all the panelists. Please do some more webinars because this digital world is very new for us, and we need tips and motivation as a parent from your side. Okay, my dear, Ghazala, I totally agree with you. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and I hope my electricity.
Thank you, Ms. Samira, and thank you to all our parents and our panelists.
I would just like to say to our parents who are here, who were here for the session, thank you very much for being a part of this. We really appreciate it. And spread the word, because I think that I'm sure that you found it beneficial, and so would a lot of other parents. So we would love to see more of you in our next session, inshallah.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz. Take care.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.